Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to He Said, He Said, He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective. I'm your host, Alvin King, and welcome to our Friday, August the 9th episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone's doing well. The weekend is upon us, and I hear that it's going to be a good one, weather-wise anyway. For many of us who live here in D.C. and on the East Coast, Tropical Storm Debbie she did DC this week. And today it was, incredible. She slammed the East Coast and Washington, DC, like I have never seen rain come through here. And I was just telling the folks backstage, my sump pump even came on. And I've never experienced that in my house, but it came through here, and I hope everyone is safe. And I even got a shelter in place warning this morning at 8:30 here in DC. And what made me, why I'm mentioning that in particular, because like many of you, we've heard of Project 2025, and many of you, like me, should be reading as much about it as you possibly can. And I just remember reading something in Project 2025 that talked about climate change. And there is a proposal that would wreak havoc on the nation's ability to prepare for and respond to climate disasters. Project 2025 suggests that eliminating the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service by replacing them with organizations with private companies. Ladies and gentlemen, we must protect our access to these life-saving weather alerts and climate data, and make sure everyone knows about these dangerous anti-science policies in Project 2025. We have to vote. You have to vote, ladies and gentlemen. That is your project for 2024. Make sure that Project 2025 doesn't come to fruition. All right. That's my PSA on Project 2025, ladies and gentlemen. This week, Mayor Bowser, mayor of DC, she lost her father, Joe Bowser. He was a fierce advocate for DC who, again, died earlier this week, according to a statement by the mayor. He was 88 years old, a DC native who spent much of his life as a public servant in his Northeast Washington neighborhood. Our condolences to Mayor Bowser, her family, and all of their friends. Please send your prayers to the mayor during her loss. All right, about our show tonight, because this is a really, really important show. It's our season 3 closing show, ladies and gentlemen, and we could not be more happy about our special guest. Voting at the local level in your jurisdiction is just as important as voting for the presidential election. And to, again, close out our season 3, joining Bobby and I tonight is the nation's Capital At-Large Councilmember Robert White, and he's here for an up-close and candid discussion about some important issues that affect Washingtonians, such as public safety, the future of our economy, housing, and education. And what makes this show so unique tonight is that we are all DC born and raised, ladies and gentlemen, and 2/3 of us on this panel who have seen 60 years of changes in our city of what used to be called Chocolate City. And I'm saying Chocolate City no more. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you all are ready, and we have a wonderful show, a packed show for you tonight. So, again, if you're ready, let's get on with the chat. Bobby Edwards.
Alvin King.
We made it.
TGIF.
Yeah, we made it. Another Friday.
And we're getting all these hellos I'm seeing here,
Oh, wait a minute. I haven't. Bobby,
hey,
go ahead. You got it.
King. And we're like, I think that was, there you go. Great evening, King.
Hey, Kendall. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Rose. Hey, Rodney E. Brian Thomas. Alma Gill is in the house.
Alma texted that she was going to watch the show tonight.
What? She's not traveling? Girl, I'm surprised. Are you in DC or somewhere around? Because you've been traveling the world. We follow you too. Okay, so
she's been being a grandma.
Thank you for joining the show. Hey, JJ. Thank you all for being here tonight. Well, Bobby, this was one of those historic weeks that we've been looking forward to, as we all know.
Yes.
And well, you know what? It has been, but not for what many of our viewers know or think.
Okay.
Yesterday was our illustrious producer's birthday. So we want to say happy birthday to Norman. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you can, click in your, in the chat. It is our producer's, but we can't do what we do without him.
Norman is like Oz, guys. Like he's behind the curtain. He's the one that's making sure the pictures come up when they're supposed to come up and sending us little notes to say, all right, keep it moving. Like he's our Oz. So we want to say thank you to our Oz, Norman.
Thank you. Happy birthday, happy belated birthday, Norman. You are one of the great ones. Okay, well, also let me also thank you all for saying happy birthday to him. He's gonna be so happy. Also, Mark Brown is on here. Wait a minute. Mark Brown is on here. That's like Joe Biden took some time to get online. Come on now.
Mark.
How you doing, Mark? Thank you for joining the show. Hey, Patrice. How you doing? Oh, Emmanuel, you guys are here today, and I know it's only because of Robert White, because he is truly amazing. Okay, I'm gonna keep this show moving.
We don't care. They're here.
I'm gonna keep it moving. So Bobby.
Yes.
Kamala Harris has chosen her running mate.
She has.
Governor Tim Walz.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
I think it is a masterful choice on a variety of levels. I think he compliments her and in ways that remind me of the choice of Joe Biden by President Obama in terms of the ways that they complement each other, bringing different skill sets, different communities, constituencies to the table. He's a former educator, so he is near and dear to my heart. Football coach, just a nice guy who is also quite smart and quite prepared to address some of the ridiculousness that's out there. So all in all, quick summary, I think he's capable. Unlike what the former president said, that the vice president doesn't matter, I do believe that he does. And I think he is somebody who would be ready to step in if that were necessary. So
that's your take on Tim Walz. I agree with you on all levels. And I want to say what's really good for me is that he's likable. And, he's likable. I want to hug him, but I know he might read me. You see what I'm saying? He got that kind of thing going on. But I know he would. And while he's reading me, he's like, but Alvin, it's okay. But you got to step back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like he is the right person for her. But all the things, I echo everything that you said, Bobby. And I thought it was a great choice. And wait a minute, Emmanuel Bra is from his state of Minnesota.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I mean, how can you be angry with someone who passed legislation to make sure the kids could eat, or that the minimum wage was increased in the state, or just, protecting women being able to make the choices about their own body? He's got a record of legislation that I think really speaks to the America that we want.
Yeah. I am very much Tim Walz and happy with the vice president's selection of this nominee. So more shall be revealed, ladies and gentlemen, because you all are doing most of you on here are doing what you need to do. And that's making sure that we get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in office in November. All right. So keep doing what you have to do. One more thing that happened on the Hill that I don't know if many of you know about, but Tom Suozzi, Democrat, won the 3rd District of New York, filling George Santos's old seat, flipping the seat from Republican to Democrat.
I don't think a lot of people knew that. That is really good news to hear.
That is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And that was something that slipped into my little DM this week. I'll live in New York. So, but I think that was good news. We need there's some excitement that's going on in our party.
It's good news for sure.
Any nudge is good news. So our special guest tonight, Bobby.
Yes.
Our special guest tonight. I'm not going to give him a huge introduction, but I because he's going to come on and talk about himself. He's electrifying. I met him in July at a fundraiser, and I approached him, At-Large Councilmember Robert White, and I knew that I had to have him on our show, Bobby. I like what he stands for, and just as Tim Walz, he's likable. Ladies and gentlemen, you all are gonna see him in a few minutes. So if you all are ready, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I'm not gonna give him a major introduction like I do other guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the He Said stage, At-Large Councilmember Robert White.
Excellent. Hey, good evening, Alvin and Bobby. Thanks for having me. Actually, I was nervous after that intro. You know, like I got to show up this evening.
You have to be likable.
That's right.
Hey, look, you, like I told you backstage, it's real. It's all you. Watching you and listening to you and hearing your story. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to post some links because, you know, like all other races or, you know, elections, you know, please donate to Robert White. We're going to put the links up, and we want you all to, you know, show some love from He Said, He Said, He Said. All right. All right. So, Robert, I'm going to go ahead and give the stage to you, and I want you to take a few minutes to tell our viewers, who is Robert White?
Yeah. Well, I won't take too much time. You never want to give the stage to a preacher or a politician without a time limit. But I believe in being brief because I want to get into some of the discussions.
Excellent.
But just so people know, I'm a native Washingtonian, fifth generation Washingtonian. My parents were Alice Deal and then Woodrow Wilson sweethearts. But like a lot of Washingtonians, you mentioned Chocolate City. I grew up in a family that was like a lot of others where like we struggled to get by, like we got by, but not with anything extra. And just watching after my mom passed away when I was young, my dad, you know, count every single penny in order to make sure we had enough and could move along. I grew up with an appreciation for, you know, every dollar counting, but then watching this city rise from where it was in the 80s and 90s to where we are now, but looking at families like mine and communities like mine and not seeing their rise as well. That's what got me into DC politics. I worked on Capitol Hill for Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton after law school. But I said, you know what? I think I can be a voice for people like my family and communities like my family, because I want to see the city continue to rise. And I have some major exciting plans for it. But when we rise, I want the people and families and communities here to rise too. So that's the work that I'm doing and would love to get into some of it because we've done some things that have been groundbreaking nationally, including passing the only bill to restore voting rights for all incarcerated people. It's a bill I passed a few years ago. I've been working on major expansions of early childhood education, and then looking at the issues like public safety, understanding you can't take shortcuts. You can't incarcerate your way to that. You got to invest in young people. You have to invest in communities, and there are ways to make our communities safer without going to the old broken tactics. So love that we have an opportunity to have this dialogue this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that this is a very personally moment of great pride as well, because in all transparency to our viewers, I happen to have gone to high school with both Robert's mother and father. We all were students together at Woodrow Wilson then at that time. And all I can say, Robert, is I know how proud your dad is, and I have no doubt that your mom smiles down on your accomplishments and your achievements. So tell us, Robert, what was the point that happened in your life that you decided, in fact, and I'm going to say Robert White Jr., because I know Robert White Sr. is probably listening tonight, but tell us the point when you decided to commit yourself to public service.
Yeah. So growing up, you know, and I still ride my dad's coattails. He is well liked for a reason. He's incredible, dynamic, just, you know, one of my two heroes.
Classic.
So to my dismay, when I was growing up, my dad listened to talk radio, and, you know, and he would talk to the talk radio. And this was during Barry's years. And, you know, what my dad would often point out was that he felt like Barry was fighting for the people, for people like him. And he didn't like how Barry got attacked for it. And that planted a seed in me that through elected office, if you are oriented in the right space and right place, you can make more change in less time for more people than any other career in the world. Now, so that planted the seed early in my life, but I didn't know how to get into politics. I didn't know anybody in politics, so it became the seed that just sat there. And I charted out my path. I went to law school. By God's grace, I bumped into an opportunity to go to Capitol Hill to work for Eleanor Holmes Norton. And so then I am working on policy. But then after 5 years working for Eleanor Holmes Norton, I'm sitting at my desk one day and I can't shake this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I'm thinking about my community. I lived in Southeast at the time. I'm thinking about my dad, but then I'm thinking about these projects I'm working on my desk. Southwest Waterfront, St. Elizabeth's development. And it struck me that, like, who's looking out for families and communities like mine? So I pulled the DC code off the shelf. I looked up the qualifications for running for office, and I charted out a plan with my wife. I quit my job with no backup plan and said, you know what? I'm going to go make a difference.
Wow.
Wow. Well, all right, Robert, our viewers, they always try to get personal. They want to know something personal. So Robert mentioned he is a husband, as you all have just heard. And I do know that he is a father. So my question to you is, on the personal side, what has being a father taught you about being a better servant leader, Robert?
It has taught me so much. I have two girls, Madison, who is 8, Monroe, who is 5, and I never thought I would have daughters. So I wasn't prepared. But, I say, God knows what
dad.
God knows what you need. I was ready. My dad was quick with a no, right? and I had the same instinct. But I can't say no to these girls. Now, being a father, there's one thing to have a vision for your own life and your own work. But I talk to my girls about the work that I do and our responsibility for social justice for other people. And I have to explain to them what I do. And at some point, I'm going to look back and they're going to look back at the work that I've done in elective office. And I want my girls to be proud of me and say, you know what, my dad made a difference. He didn't waste time. He didn't take time. He made a difference. And so being a dad has really elevated my sense of personal responsibility to make sure that I use my time in public office for the right things in ways that are demonstrably good for the people that elected me to help them.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert.
I will say one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Having kids has helped me draw boundaries. And especially when COVID hit, I have to be present for my girls. And that means that I have to say no to some things, including community meetings. And that's healthy. But it also, I think, helps say to other fathers, you can do both, public service and be all in, or whatever your career is, and be a present father. And I think that's an important thing in any profession.
Wow. I also, look, I am not a father, but the words that you just spoke should resonate with a lot of men who are struggling, can they do this or can they do that, and feeling like they have to decide. And that word that you use, boundaries, it is very important. And I think generally, a lot of Black men, I'm just going to say generally, we don't exercise our boundaries in a way that benefits us. So that was a good word, Robert. Are you a preacher? You're not a preacher, are you?
I'm not. You're not. My dad is.
Okay.
He's the son of one. I'm the son of a preacher.
Because I was going to go get the plate. Okay, I'm sorry, I digressed. I'm telling you, that was a word right there. Thank you, Robert.
Obviously, it's in his blood. But Robert, like in Washington, D.C., as in many major cities, housing is often an issue. And the cost of housing. As someone who lived away for many years after growing up here and then coming back to the Washington area, just shocked at the cost of housing. Can you talk to us about things that are happening on the council to make housing available to middle-income families and individuals?
Yeah, so I'm glad you're asking this, and I'm glad you're asking about middle-income people. Well, what I've found that causes me some frustration since I've been on the council is that often there's advocacy for affordable housing, for low-income housing, and not a lot of advocacy for workforce housing. But I believe there has to be a ladder. So we're always preaching to young people. We want to see them do better and have opportunity. But let's say somebody grows up in public housing in another low income housing situation. They, get a career, they make money, they make $80,000, $90,000. Now they have nowhere to live. That is a problem. And frankly, if folks making $80,000, $90,000 don't have anywhere to live, your economy is going to sink too. So what I'm doing on the council is, one, I'm trying to be a voice to make sure we are building that middle income housing. And the reality there are a couple things that have to happen. One, there's no way around the fact you have to build more housing. So I'm always looking for ways in investing money, like in our housing production trust fund, home purchase assistance program, to make sure there's money to produce and purchase housing. But I also have been pushing since 2016 on something that I think we're finally going to make some substantial progress on, which is building a substantial amount of housing downtown. So before COVID, office buildings were already starting to empty out. But since COVID and virtual work and AI has really shifted things, downtown is never going to be again what it was in 2019. Now, you could see this as a crisis, or you could see it as an opportunity. The opportunity here is to reduce the number of office buildings, create neighborhoods downtown. We could create so much housing in the next 5 to 10 years. That would take the pressure off the cost. That would allow us to build more workforce housing, more artist housing, more senior housing. So I want to see us produce more housing. And some of that is the funding, but the other part is the vision. And I'm getting impatient with my vision for downtown. So I'm going to be hitting the accelerator in the next couple of months because I got to push things ahead right now.
All right. Step on the gas. Step on the pedal, my brother.
So with saying all that, Robert, can you address the current level of what appears to be uncontrolled gentrification in many parts of our DC neighborhoods?
Yeah. So, and this is something we are seeing across the country as well. But let me sort of talk about the term gentrification quickly, because there are two things. One is changing neighborhoods. And to some extent, we want to see changes. We want to see more coffee shops, dry cleaners, grocery stores, particularly in predominantly Black neighborhoods that we haven't seen it. Southeast DC, comes to mind. What we don't want to see is the displacement as a result of that. And I don't believe you have to displace people in order to bring the things that folks want. So if we build more workforce housing, stop putting all the affordable housing in the same places, in Ward 7 and in Ward 8 and Deanwood. Stop doing that. Build workforce housing there. So you have disposable income. Businesses will come get grounded in those communities. But that's the piece we're missing, Alvin, is really building workforce housing in the neighborhoods that we have traditionally just thrown all the affordable housing in. And then the affordable housing, we need to spread that to other parts of the city, west of Rock Creek Park, uptown. We have to spread that out. That's going to be good for the city. That diversity is good. You reduce the sort of, traps of poverty. So, we've got to get unstuck from this. Like, we can only do affordable housing in the places that already have it. We have to get unstuck from that. And I've developed some innovative ways to get at that. But I need the mayor and her team to implement them.
Okay.
Wow.
That's key.
As we talk about the influx of visitors, Washington, D.C. has always been a very transient city that brings people in. The government, as a seat of government of the nation, there's always people coming in for different reasons and so forth. Can you talk to us at all about, given this, efforts to make sure that Washingtonians are indeed, you talked about displacement and so forth, are there efforts or initiatives out here that are supporting Washingtonians staying Washingtonians?
And not enough. And so you have programs like the Home Purchase Assistance Program, which helps people who live here purchase their first home here. But what I don't think we do a good enough job in DC with is investing in our folks. So that's a place that we've got to do much better. I think we do that in a couple places. One, creating programs in our schools for young people to help them develop in music and the arts and sports and what have you, but help them to develop. But also for our artists of any age, we have to create more of a foundation that's artist space, that's performance space, that's artist housing, so that we can start to see really our renaissance. but not because we are looking for people from other parts of the country. I mean, I hope they'll come, but by investing in the people who are here already. But I believe that investment has to really start with our young people. If we start to invest in our young people in a bigger way, we're going to see them thrive more and succeed more. The other side of that coin is businesses. I often hear local business owners say that they have an easier time getting business in Maryland and Virginia than they do in DC. And that is a problem, because if you're a DC resident, if you start a DC business, this should be the place that's really propelling you forward. And those are things that you have to do those things deliberately. And I don't think we do a great job of that right now.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take this moment to let our viewers know that earlier this week, before we started even advertising the show, I just put out a post to say, if you had an opportunity to ask your council member a question here in DC, what would it be? Thank you all I opened the floodgates. And so at the end of the show, I'm going to acknowledge some of the folks that came through in a major way. So these questions that we're asking Robert today actually came from you. All right. So I want to thank you all for that. And again, we'll acknowledge you all at the end of the show. So Robert, one question that came from one of our viewers was, what is being done specifically by the council to improve the economic revitalization of depressed corridors such as Georgia Avenue in Northwest, Rhode Island Avenue in Northeast, and Benning Road in Northeast? Is there anything underway for that?
So the short answer is yes. There are some programs, Great Streets programs that invest in our businesses, and so there are some programs. But what I think is missing, and I think this speaks to the question the person is probably asking, is we don't have a clear enough, defined enough vision for those corridors. So I think the corridors like Georgia Avenue, I live near Georgia Avenue, Benning Road, New York Avenue. Think about how those corridors look versus, let's say, Connecticut Avenue. The difference is density. So if we have more buildings, more apartment buildings, condos on these corridors, that is going to entice many more businesses to come to those corridors as well. Also helps us get at this workforce housing issue. So, when you do these things kind of piecemeal, then you look at, one project at a time, one building at a time, but you don't really know where you're going. So it's hard to judge whether or not you're moving the needle. But if we start to articulate a vision for our city that says, look, we're going to build more housing. It's going to be workforce housing, senior housing, artist housing, housing for our young people who graduated from college and want to come back here and have a place to start. And we're going to build this on these corridors. And the result of that is that you're going to see more grocery stores, more coffee shops, more dynamic businesses. Then people start to understand that vision, they buy into the vision. And so every time there's an application for a project, you know whether or not it fits that vision. But first you need a vision. Right now, we're largely operating without a vision. So it's just not happening in the way that we would like. We see like a tire shop here, no shade to a tire shop, because there's one on Georgia Avenue that has saved me. You see a little used car lot there, and you see a building in between, and it's hodgepodge. And I think we can do better than that. So that's where I want to see our city go. And one of the things that I like doing is really fleshing out my vision for the city, talking to people about what that vision is and getting buy-in, because whatever we can envision, we can build. But if we don't envision it, we won't build it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Another question as a Washingtonian. One of the things that I've always loved about our city in terms of urban planning, it's a very organized city. There was a lot of thought that went into the structure and design and the aesthetics of Washington, D.C., where streets are numerical, alphabetical, they build on syllables, in those ways. But there's also, in terms of the urban communities, the urban neighborhoods, there was a consistency, I think, in terms of the visualization of these communities. Many of the row homes and so forth, they were unique in their small certain ways, but the skyline was pretty consistent. the homes look, and they created a sense of continuity to the communities. In the last decade or so, these pop-ups, these that just create a very different visualization in terms of inner city neighborhoods. I remember a time when it was said that these pop-ups would be discouraged, that they wouldn't happen as frequently, that investors would not be able to come in and literally change the visual landscape of the city. Not necessarily so. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked this right after we asked about gentrification and the cost of housing. One of the things that compete against each other is the availability of housing and the cost of housing. These pop-ups, as much as an eyesore as some of them are,
they define pop-ups. I just realized that we know what they are, but I don't know if
you know what. Thank you for that. Let me. Do you want to define it, or do you want me to define it?
Well, basically, it's when single-family homes, our investors come in and they buy these single-family homes and they create multiple units within them. And in some instances, to do that, it will actually build. And in most instances, it's a third level on top of the two-level story building. And so you have buildings that are like this, and all of a sudden you have this, and then it goes back. And sometimes they are consistent with the design of the block, and other times that it can be a completely different design. And so it changes the aesthetics of the block.
There it is. So, if you add a third story and it's pushed back, and then you maybe expand the back of the house, it's not terrible. It looks a little different, but doesn't change the aesthetic. But sometimes you have a row of houses, and right in the middle, you have this just big, it looks like a skyscraper, like big block, and it's hideous. And so I would like to see more balance in the design, but we are going to have to think about where in a city that is as landlocked as the district is, how and where we build more housing. So some of this will be more buildings on the corridors like, Benning Road, Bladensburg Road, Georgia Avenue, like we just discussed. Some of these will be new uses and concepts for existing row homes. But I think we do want to look to maintain the visual character of the neighborhoods. And I think there's a balance that we can have there. And so, most people don't mind the third story that's pushed back off the street. It's that big, abrupt, just, straight up looking like, something
contemporary, like totally different.
Yeah, it looks like you just lost the game of Tetris, right?
See, and hearing that, I live in your neighborhood as well, Robert White, not Bobby. Robert, I live in your neighborhood, and I am so fortunate to live on a street that is only 2 blocks long, that was built. All the homes on my street were built by the same person. So anybody who moves on my street, that I don't live in what do you call it? It's not where you have, what do you call it? We don't have in one of those neighborhoods. What is it when you live in a community and you pay?
The homeowners
association.
I don't have anything. No, it's not like that. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting that happen. And so I am so glad that hearing that question from Bobby, I was just sitting here saying, damn, that's not going to happen on my street.
It's happening.
But I see it everywhere. I do see it everywhere. And I never thought about it until Bobby asked that question. Yeah. So, yeah, wow. That is, yeah. But not on my street. So I want to ask you about the homeless population, because in my eye, I think I have seen a reduction in homeless people or the population, and I'm not trying to be naive about it. I just think that over the last 2 or 3 years, the city has found a way to kind of take care of that problem. But one of the questions our viewers have sent in is, what is being done to place the homeless people, the homeless population, in housing instead of building housing that nobody can afford?
So, Alvin, I wish it were true that homelessness was reducing in the city. Unfortunately, it's going up, and it's gone up in the past couple of years. And one of the heartbreaking 3 Black Washingtonians, when I talk to homeless people in the city, which I do very frequently, I want to understand. I represent them too, right? So I want to understand their stories. What happened? What can we do better? What's missing? There are things that bother my soul. One, almost all of them are Black Native Washingtonians.
Mm.
Most of them hit a point in life where they needed a safety net that many of us have, even if it's just a couch to sleep on for a bit, and they didn't have that safety net. The other thing that really hurts is almost every homeless person I talk to in DC has already been approved for a housing voucher, but they have still been living on the street for 1, 2, 3 years, waiting for the process of that voucher to come to fruition. Now, it is unacceptable that like process is what's stopping people from living in homes. But I don't just stop at the problem. I try to diagnose the problem. So as I really jumped into this, what I found was the biggest gap in this process was that we don't have enough social workers. And that's who helps folks navigate all the rest of the process to get into housing. And since we don't have enough social workers, you know what I did? I worked with the University of the District of Columbia, and I funded a free master's in social work program so that we can expand the pipeline. We will have Native Washingtonians of color getting their master's in social work for free to help other Native Washingtonians of color. And this is tuition, it's books, it's a transportation and living stipend, and assistance paying for your social work exam, because I want to reduce this barrier. But we do, as a city, have a housing first program. So theoretically, folks living on the street should be able to get into housing, and the folks who need wraparound services should get those services. But right now, the system is broken, and I'm on the inside trying to fix it.
Wow. We have a question by Aral Health. Aral, thank you for joining us today. And he said that, and I think he's talking about the homeless community. They have found a way to hide or move I'm sorry. He's talking about, he's not talking about, well, he's talking about the homeless community. When he says they have found a way to hide or move the homeless elsewhere, that conversion alone is multi-layered.
Yeah.
That conversation, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this is something I raise flags on all the time. We do these encampment sweeps, right? And the problem is when you clear an encampment and the shelters are full, where do those folks go? Right. They go in front of somebody else's house. They go to another park, but they don't end up better. And in fact, they end up worse because it's taken some time. A lot of our homeless population in DC, a significant portion of our homeless population, have severe mental health issues. And so it takes a lot of time for these caseworkers to develop the relationships and trust and start moving them into the right programs. But when you just like displace them, through these encampment clearings, you roll that backwards, and it actually makes the homelessness issue worse. It is something I do not support. I think it hurts our efforts to end homelessness. So I appreciate that concern.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another issue, obviously, that has been on the minds of many Washingtonians and people across the country in terms of major cities is the whole connection of crime and youth. I have been stunned at stories of car nappings, carjackings rather, shooting, robberies, assaults, and things. 13, 14-year-old kids. Like, I'm saying to myself, how is that even possible that you are even thinking in this way? Can you talk to us about initiatives that are in place or happening or that you support to really address the issue of youth and crime?
Yeah. I mean, this is something that is startling. It's heartbreaking. I don't want to see anybody behind bars. I especially don't want to see young people behind bars. But when we give young people the sense that there are no consequences for crime, especially violent crime, we encourage that behavior and it spreads. And so we do young people a disservice by not holding them accountable. But the solution isn't just, well, let's figure out how to lock young people up more and lock them up longer. We have to get to the root of these issues and start solving them. So accountability after you commit a crime is one aspect, but we also have to focus on preventing more young people from going down that path. So I spent the first 6 months of this year just talking to young people across the city to understand from their perspective what was happening, why are their peers acting out in this way, what are you missing, what can we provide for you? And I heard three things consistently. One, young people said they need to make money. Two, young people said they don't have enough guidance. And three, they said there weren't enough services once they started seeing their peers go off the tracks. So I have three initiatives that I'm trying to get through the council right now to address the lack of guidance. When young people tell you they need more guidance, you have got to listen. So I have a bill that would allow every single one of our 40,000 DC government workers to get a one paid hour a week to mentor or tutor a young person in our city. So we could, as quickly as we sign a bill, get an army of professionals into the lives of our young people. The second thing I'm doing is I'm working on the biggest expansion of vocational education that we've ever had in our city. Because young people in high school who don't plan to go to college, when they start saying, well, if I don't plan to go to college, why am I still here? That's a dangerous thing. We've got to make sure they see a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 career within reach right after graduation. The third part of my plan is on truancy, understanding every single month, school by school, which schools are getting kids into their seats and which ones are not, so that the schools that are doing a good job, we can learn from them. And the schools that are not able to get kids in their seats, we get the resources to them quickly and in real time. Because truancy is the first bright indicator that something's going off track. And that's where we want to intervene. So we've got to start addressing problems in a smarter way. You can't just kind of like throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. You got to talk to people. You got to assess what's happening, and you have to make plans to really address these root causes.
Robert, I know that we are getting close on time, and we do have a couple of questions. So I'm going to speed this up, if I may, because I could talk to you for 2 hours. I know I could. Robert, this is from one of our viewers, who are your biggest financial supporters, and were any concessions made to obtain their support that could impact constituents?
Yes, my wife is my biggest supporter, and I conceded to her that regardless of where my heart is when I'm 65, I'm retiring. But I think it'll be before that. So I use public financing. Nobody in my race, I'm in a race right now, nobody can donate more than $100. So that's it. I don't have like an industry that's a particular supporter. Even without public financing, the donation limits in DC are pretty low. So if I was not using public financing, the most any person could donate to me would be $1,000. And I tell folks all the time, I hope you're not selling your soul for $1,000. But all that to say, I don't have any big financial supporters. It's a lot of people, thousands of people making small donations.
And ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we will put up Robert's link where you could go to reelectrobertwhite.com and please make a donation. Please make a donation. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby. I got in the way of your question.
That's all right. I know we're as you said, we're close on time. So I want to ask a question that I'm sure for those of us who are Washingtonians is on our minds. Robert, you previously ran to be mayor of Washington, D.C. That did not happen. But the question on my mind and my heart, and I'm sure others, is that something you still aspire to one day be our mayor here in the district?
So, I'm running for re-election right now for my at-large seat. There's a lot of work that I'm doing that's important that I'm going to keep doing, and there's more that I can do in this seat. But I will say this: I have a vision for this city that I cannot unsee. And I believe that our best days are ahead, and that we have to understand what our next chapter is as a city. Because if we don't go seize it, we will suffer the consequences for some decades. And the vision I have for this city is, as I said, it's one that I haven't let go of. And my wife has given me permission to run for mayor one more time. So that's all I can say.
Choose that time wisely. Choose it wisely.
That's right.
Choose it wisely. And thank her for the rest of us.
Yeah, please do. Well, Robert, I know, again, like I said, I could keep you here all day because, like I said, you you touched me when I met you. I said, you know what, I'm following this guy, I'm supporting this guy, and I know that I will be voting for you. So our conversation with you, unfortunately, has to come to a close. But I want to thank you for being here. And I actually, Bobby, if you will, I can I ask one more question? Can I ask one more?
So that's how you're going to do it.
No, Bobby, no, you go ahead and ask, because I really want to ask that question. You go ahead.
Go ahead and ask your question. Are
you serious? Okay, all right. Is there, Robert, what legislation that you have passed that are you most proud of? And I'd like you to take us out on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was, and I appreciate that question. When I was going through law school and taking the bar, starting my work on Capitol Hill, my brother, who I'm incredibly close with, you know, I love him to death. He was going through a difficult time in his life. He was incarcerated. That was tough on my family. And watching him, my brother, just in terms of book smarts, incredibly smart. He has a good family. We don't have a lot of financial resources, but we have a good family, solid family. But my brother had such a difficult time transitioning back to the city. And what I learned through that process in our relationship was what disenfranchisement of incarcerated people means for their families and their ability to get back on track. And I promised myself that if I was ever in a position to do something about this issue, I would, even though it's not the type of thing that would usually get you elected. And I passed a bill about 3-4 years ago now, making DC the first jurisdiction in the nation to restore voting rights to all incarcerated people, because this was a relic of Jim Crow. And we got rid of literacy laws. We got rid of, preventing poor people from voting, poll taxes. The one thing from Jim Crow stopping people from voting that we never got rid of was disenfranchising incarcerated people. And so I was able to turn that back in DC, and I hope to see other states do it as well.
Wow. Thank you. And is this your dad? Is this Deacon Bobby who said, "Well said, son"? Is that your dad?
That's my dad.
Thank you for joining us, Deacon Bobby. I heard a lot about you through Bobby. So nice to thank you for joining the show. Robert, first of all, thank you for joining the Bald Crew. I appreciate you tonight.
He blends it quite well.
That's right.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, of course, this conversation will be available on YouTube. Robert has said some things that you all need to go back and listen to about himself, the city, and the future. And he came to do what he said he would do, and you did it tonight. So thank you for joining our platform tonight, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. So very proud of you. And he's telling the truth. He came back and he was like, "Bobby, I met this guy and we have to have him on the show." And I was like, "Let me tell you how I know him."
He did.
Small city.
He did. Well, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, and looking forward to see wonderful and great things from you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, At-Large Councilmember Robert White Jr.
Thank you for having Bobby, Alvin. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to come back.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Love to your family.
Thank you.
Bobby.
Alvin.
That was a great interview. Ladies and gentlemen, as we said, this is our final show of the season. And Bobby and I are taking a much needed hiatus. But you know what, as always, thank you, Michi, for showing up tonight. Thank you for showing up. But you know, this week, as we said, has been really, really full. And most of it has been centered around the Olympics. Would you agree, Bobby?
and of course, I love this image being here, because you know the running joke on the street now is that that's Mary J. Blige, because they're like Mary J. Blige. The Paris Olympic logo, which is supposed to be a torch or a smile.
It looks like Mary J. I heard that and I had to look at it and agree.
I was like, uh-oh.
No. Well, if we could play No More Drama, we sure have seen it over the last couple of days. Okay, if that's for sure. And we don't want to give any spoilers away, because Bobby and I have been knee deep in the Olympics, like many of you.
And we made a promise, no spoilers.
No spoilers, but we do want to talk on some of the melanin magic that has occurred, during the Olympics. And I'm going to kick it off. One of the first things I want to say kudos to Snoop Dogg. I did not know Snoop Dogg could come on and he has just made a presence during the Olympics that made me really enjoy it. You
got to give credit where credit is due. Like, I have seen him swimming with Michael Phelps. I've seen him looking at equestrian sports with Martha Stewart. I've seen him, hanging out with the gymnasts. I have to give it to him. He has shown up everywhere, and he's made it fun and exciting. So, got to give credit where credit is due.
Snoop Dogg has showed up and showed out in a major way. And of course, track and field has dominated. And, Sha'Carri Richards has won the silver in the, did she win the bronze? No, yeah, she won the silver in the 100 meter. But while she was doing that, Bobby, during that same race, Anna Fraser-Price pulled out. And nobody knew what was going on. And I don't know if you heard this or not, but they didn't stay in the Olympic Village.
There was an issue getting in the village.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let them in. And they had to walk almost a mile to the venue to do the race. And that's when Shelley said she wasn't going to do it. So she pulled out. And Sha'Carri said, well, I'm going to do it. And girlfriend got a medal. But you could tell something was wrong with her.
Something was going on. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, again, in both of these cases, these are high profile athletes. Right. These are not athletes that you're like, well, there's no way they would have known that they are competing for their countries. Both of these women are very, very high profile. So it's really hard to understand how something like that could happen.
Right. Yeah. That I didn't like that story, and I hope it doesn't stop there. And then, of course, it's Noah Lyles, who he barely won the 100, but he won.
He won. No.
Yes, and he
never say you barely won. You win or you don't. He got the.
Okay, I'm gonna take barely out because that sounds like some shade, but I wasn't. that wasn't shade.
He's officially the fastest man on earth, right?
He really is in the 100. But in the 200, he got the bronze, and he won it with COVID.
He also got the COVID.
And I got all kind of questions. I don't have time to go into that whole conversation about him having COVID. And with
the COVID. Exactly.
I got all kind of issues about that. But one thing that wasn't a surprise, and that was Sydney Laughlin Lavrone showing up. And I mean, say that again.
Showing up and showing out.
And showing out. And she won for the second time the gold medal, in her field, 2.
Yes. And set a record doing it.
I'm all for her. And then, of course, some more melanin magic. I want to take Gabby Thomas. I'm going to go back in time and take her to my prom. Gabby Thomas
said that backstage, people. He did say that. I swear to you. He was like, I want to take her to prom.
Gabby Thomas.
So many reasons that can't happen, but go ahead.
I don't know, but she's just so beautiful. But again, melanin magic. I mean, they are doing it. And then Quincy Hall, he won the 400. Okay, all right, he won the 400. Yeah. They didn't expect him to do that, but he did it. What did Beth say? Beth said just because they're high profile here, that doesn't mean they're high profile overseas, and never underestimate racism in Europe. I lived there for 35 years and know how bad it is.
All right, Beth, I will.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for saying that. We're going to acknowledge the basketball teams, the male and the female basketball teams who are doing it. And I don't know if you all heard it, but on Saturday, both men and women, the U.S. are playing France.
Isn't that hilarious? Out of all the teams, the United States and France will be competing for gold in basketball in both men's and women's. I think that is incredible, and I want us to bring home the gold. Two goals. And then there's Kevin Durant, who has Lisa Leslie's. He has passed her for the most points scored in Olympic history. Yeah. So, and he's hometown talent. Local.
Come on, Kevin Durant. Come on. But Bobby, one of the hardest sports that I've been seeing out there is
know
that darn
this is
artistic
new
or
to me.
synchronized swimming. Come on, Bobby,
Alvin. Alvin. And what did they perform to? Do you remember?
USA performed to Michael Jackson. But,
Smooth.
Smooth Criminal.
Yeah.
But Canada did a what do you call it? They went rap. They went back to yes they did. And they did a whole rap theme, and Snoop Dogg was just going off. They played one of his songs, and so and so he was just he was just in awe about it. But
so he was there. They performed.
He was there. And but one of the biggest stories that's trending, ladies and gentlemen, is French pole vaulter Anthony Ammirati made headlines for not getting on the podium, but being denied a medal last weekend because of his dream-shattered manhood. Okay?
Yeah.
He didn't tuck. Okay.
And the pole came down. Literally.
And the pole came down, ladies and gentlemen. But but the endorsements are coming in. Okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And they're not related to athletics, unfortunately.
Not at all. Not at all. Bobby, thank you all for enduring Bobby and I for taking you on what we call, our Olympic headline, ladies and gentlemen. It ends on Sunday. But as I said, tonight is we begin our hiatus, and we will not be live until after September the 27th, ladies and gentlemen. And it is much needed. It is much needed. And I just want to say, Bobby, thank you for all the work that you do to show up and make sure that, the dream team, you and I, do what we do, and you help keep my dream alive. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Norman.
Thank you, Norman.
Yeah, I want to thank you both for making that happen. Anything you want to say, Bobby, on your year out?
Well, I just want to say you put your heart and soul into the show each and every week. People don't know all that goes into the research and securing our guests. And, we meet and we discuss the show weekly before we come on. So our hope is to make it look as though it's completely off the cuff and so forth. But we work hard to, consider what we're going to discuss and how we're going to discuss, and to make sure that our viewers get to leave each week with something that really makes a difference for them. And so it is your dream. I'm happy and proud to have been invited to be a part of it. And as people know, you and I have been, as we said before, we've been friends for decades now. So this is not a new friendship, but a certainly new relationship in terms of my joining you on this platform. And so I feel honored. I know how you are about things, and so you wouldn't invite just anybody to do it. So it's a great compliment to me to be able to do it with you.
Well, thank you. And to our viewers, thank you all for showing up every week on a Friday night when you could be doing something else. I know you might have your drinks and all that with you, your dinner, but you all show up and you support us. And, I couldn't ask for anything more. I do this because I love it. I do it because I think that I have something to contribute. I love being a resource, and you all help me to actually be better today than I was yesterday.
Come on now.
Right? So thank you all. And this has led into my words of the week. All of this and us getting ready to go on hiatus. Staying positive doesn't mean you have to be happy all of the time. It means that even on hard days, you know that there are better ones coming.
Amen.
All right. And so again, and you know what? Before I leave the show, it's going to be in the credit, but I want to make sure that I give a special shout out to Curtis Sean Davis, to Dr. Donita Holmes, to Mark Brown, and to Troy Patterson. All of you sent in your questions to us, and we were, it helped to make this show tonight with the councilman what it was. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great weekend.
As Wendy Williams used to always say, that the audience is kind of like their co-host as well. And so tonight was evidence of the fact that your contributions help make this show a really great show. So we thank you guys for tuning in, but also being such active participants. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. So we look forward to seeing you. Oh, and we will be showing previously aired shows, so you can tune in.
So
and
every
this will
Friday
be one of them, okay? For sure. So you all, look, have a great weekend. Do something nice. Love yourself. And we look forward to seeing you on the next new episode of He Said.
He said.
He said. All right.
Enjoy this.
Be safe.
Love you guys. Be safe.